I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-minute convos where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good day, Brenton McKiterick. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful day?
I'm doing really well. I've had some interesting weather down here in Melbourne, Australia, but yeah, I'm doing great, thank you.
It's a great pleasure to connect with you. Please do tell us which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this time.
So probably through my podcast that I co-host, the Unknown Strength podcast, which is a podcast dedicated to providing our audiences with insights into the strength training and martial arts worlds. So we look to crack open the minds of elite performers, trainers, and experts and learn something through their experiences.
You said jiu-jitsu in one sentence, and then you said crack open. Ooh.
Yeah, the pun is a bit of a play on there.
So, I mean, just playing on the pun, who did you learn that skill from? The cracking from?
So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I've been training for about 10 years. My first instructor was Ben Hall, and I moved from there after about a couple of years and was training under a Brazilian black belt named Alexandre Santos. Trained with him for about a year, and for about the last 5 years, I've trained under Tiago Stefanutti at Absolute MMA in the CBD of Melbourne.
Yeah, definitely connecting the cracking part when you say MMA, right?
Absolutely.
That's intriguing. I did get to listen to the podcast. Really amazing conversation going on there. You get to dive really deep, follow the stories, connect the stories. It must be fun to do what you do there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had a lifetime of being curious, infatuated with human behavior and psychology. And I guess it's something somehow compelled me to find a platform to be able to ask my own questions of these martial artists fighters and, probe them with those questions that actually bug me and gain insights into their training regimens and mindsets and ask those questions essentially that boil down to why are you good at your art and, what is it that differentiates you between other competitors and fighters that makes you special.
When I listened, it seemed to be the concept, if you would, that the thread that ran through is consistency in training.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something you see at the highest level. You absolutely have to commit your life to it. It has to have that consistency and persistence. And it's hard being at the highest level of a sport because you've got to maintain and avoid injuries to begin with. You've got to be looking to new ways to explore your training and evolve and adapt, or you're left behind.
Why will you continue to repeat these skills? I mean, you've just thrown out all of the challenges that go with it, right?
So as far as the podcast is concerned and have this platform to have these conversations, I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm exposed to some truly fascinating people. I'm always learning something through the podcast. I mean, we've had people from UFC fighters to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champions, to psychologists, medical scientists. There's truly a wealth of knowledge that I get to tap into, and purely exercising this continues to improve me, enable my own skills in conducting interviews, or rather, really, we look at it as having conversations.
And the part with you getting your head cracked, I mean, and your body parts, like, why will you continue to repeat that?
I think you can't live a life without risk, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whilst it entails some degree of risk, there's nothing like having the ego squeezed out of you and crushed. I mean, it's invigorating to actually have such an incredibly cerebral sport. It's often referred to as chess on the mat due to its highly intellectual nature. So despite being a very physically demanding sport at times, you can't progress without learning new methodologies or pathways to connect and integrate techniques. So being a brute really only gets you so far, and I truly believe that old adage, knowledge is power, is exemplified in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
I love it. Tell us one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, Brenton.
Something else I've done, I would say, is probably studying and working on designing products and services. I think I've always been a really creative person. I like creating content. So, examples in my life are that podcast. And funny enough, I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a really creative domain. You're always learning new things and having to look at things differently and adjust your lens. So that's something that's very inspiring. So as far as designing products, I'm a user experience and product designer. So I'd like to bring into the world things, products and services that will change and enrich people's lives.
How does that make you feel?
Amazing. It's it's incredible being able to put invest your interests into creating something and offering it to the world. It's very, very rewarding. At the end of the day, I think a lot of us want to leave some kind of legacy behind, and I mean, my lifelong goal of mine is to to create something that is going to change the world, as noble as it is.
Why would you suggest to someone that's listening that they even consider the aspect of adding that legacy layer to what they're doing, what they're creating?
Why would I suggest someone do? Because I think it's, like I like how Neil deGrasse Tyson, the famous cosmologist and physicist, put it, that, you want to leave the world in a better place than when you came into it. So I think by seeking to provide something to the world, if everyone has that ambition, we'll ultimately make the world a better place.
Hey, heal out your co-host.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, heal out your co-host. I know there are two of you on that podcast, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've got my co-host McGregor McNair. He's actually also my strength co-host. So I mean, that's a platform we're looking to really, again, offer something of value to our audience.
Beautiful. There we go. Amazing audience. Again, we're live with Brenton McKiterick, and he is the podcast host of The Unknown Strength, right? Our podcast. Definitely check that out. Brenton, let's switch gears for a moment now, and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Brenton, what is your earliest childhood memory?
That's a difficult one, but I would say that my first memory, I was sitting on a carpeted floor of the very first family house that we built, and my parents were telling me that my sister, well, essentially telling both of us, they're telling me and my sister that she would be turning one soon. She'd be turning 1 year old, and I remember trying to wrap my head around that as I think I would have been about 4 years old, because I'm 3 years older than her. And she looked completely oblivious to this information, and there I was looking at this little person growing into an actual personality, and I think it was fairly impressionable because it was somewhat emotionally impactful, and trying to process the concept of time in relation to human beings was a significant revelation at the time.
So, wow, you did your homework. Ooh. Why do you think it's so clear?
I think because of the emotional impact. I mean, my understanding and reading of the science is a lot of those memories are attached to things of emotional significance. So that was, for me, growing up with a sibling and a sister, that was, seeing that person coming of an age, 1 year old, was impactful.
Can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Yes, sure.
I love the idea of the mat time and the removal of ego and the understanding and reflection in thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
In jiu-jitsu, like I've seen these guys, I mean, like I thought it was right, like just, you guys hug on the mat, right? But to see what goes in terms of the mindset. And then there's another part that I found pretty intriguing where you train until your body does what's necessary before your mind thinks it.
Absolutely.
And to see that you're that child that is on the carpet, right? Just connecting those dots, like with the invisible dots, if you would. It's just fascinating how that connects to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, jiu-jitsu is an amazing sport. I mean, you develop camaraderie in a community, and it's a vigorous physical sport and a highly cerebral sport. So,
If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
Oh, this is embarrassing. Hopefully now this is the point where I hope nobody people listen to this, but I won't share this with my friends, but Backstreet's Back by the Backstreet Boys. I think I have to credit that song though. That put me on the pathway to rock and roll and heavy metal music that I love listening to today. So I had to start somewhere.
Yeah. All right, we'll try to eat that.
I'm honest.
Oh, there we go. I appreciate that. Well, Brenton, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there is a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready? Yep. Brenton, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
So for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, absolutely. Always looking to help my teammates grow.
Are you married?
No.
Do you have children?
No.
Do you believe in God?
In the concept of a God depicted in scriptures, I would say no.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes, absolutely. A group I've grown through high school with.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No.
How about 3 hours a week?
About that.
What about screen time, the phone and or the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
More than 8 hours a day.
If you, Brenton, had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents Brenton McKiterick, what would you say that is?
I think it's certainly not unique, but I would say fail forward. And that means being prepared to try, learn, and grow, utilizing failure as an opportunity to actually learn and as a catalyst for growth. So nobody ever does anything great without failing. So readjusting your perspective can offer insights into that.
Love it. Hey, Brenton, this was a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Yeah, it was fun. I hope your listeners found it valuable. Try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Have a fair crack at it. It can offer everyone so much of all ages, shapes, and sizes. Please check out our Unknown Strength podcast. It's on all podcasting apps and iTunes. And like us on Facebook. So it's the Unknown Strength podcast.
Love it, Brenton McKiterick. Thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.